Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm very happy to be here actually. It's very, 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 very kind, of Sheila and Patty and the people from Shantideva inviting me to do some blah, blah, blah talks, as I like to say, because, I don't know anything. As you guys gonna see it these weeks, we have, I think, 7 weeks or something like this, 7 meetings. And, I don't know much. So the only thing I can do is try to share a little bit of what I received from my teachers. That is the most important thing. I have been blessed and very fortunate, which is actually the meaning of Kalden. When I became a monk with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, almost 6 years ago, Kalden was the name that Rinpoche gave me, and I tried to say what Kalden means, and then fortunate, and then I thought, wow, fortunate, what that actually, means. And I think that the more I think, the more I actually reflect on what fortunate means in the Dharma is actually to have the presence of teachers and gurus like Lama Zopa Rinpoche and His Holiness in our lives. So that is what I can say, that I've been fortunate to met, to have the contact, to be with these in the presence of these beings. So what I'm gonna try to do is to share a little bit of my, very small knowledge and very small experience, with them. And then maybe for me, I have a background in finance and a background in, I'm a lawyer and an accountant. I used to work in finance. So for me, that transition of this world, it's very important that we keep things simple and keep things, as I like to say, updated for our daily lives, right? Because otherwise the Dharma can become something very intellectual, huh? Something that we think it is something, a more of a knowledge type of information or experience, but actually Dharma is wisdom, right? Dharma is the method to transform our inner wisdom, to come about, to make it come about, to make it realize our own inner wisdom. So wisdom is very different than knowledge. Many people can have a lot of Buddhist knowledge, but not necessarily have wisdom, right? Because wisdom means that you apply that knowledge to transform yourself and to transform yourself in opening your heart, right? And then really becoming a better human being. That's it. So okay, good night, that's it, we finished the class. That's what we can do, because that is the essence of practicing Dharma. So, what we're going to try to talk about in these next few weeks is to really go into the essence, because for me, it's the point where makes Buddhism so important. If we think about it, Buddhism, it started 2,600 years ago, and it's an incredible source of knowledge. And we have so many texts and so many commentaries and commentaries of the commentary of the commentary of the commentary, as I like to say. Nowadays we have the commentary of the commentary of the commentary. We have so many things that we can study, that we can actually, try to really study. But if we just study and we just keep that, but we don't transform it into our daily lives, then it doesn't actually make so much sense. And if we see Buddhism throughout the world, throughout the years, and throughout all of this time, actually Buddhism arrived in societies, in cultures, and it was applied within that society and that culture, and that transformed the society and the culture, right? So now, if we think about it, Tibetan Buddhism is very new in the West, maybe 50, 60 years, right? So we are the people that are responsible. We are the trailblazers, to actually bring about this incredible knowledge, this incredible opportunity that we still have to have contact, to be in the presence, to learn, to see, and to be inspired by these holy beings like His Holiness, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all of these teachers that we have. But not only to say, oh, okay, I need to be like that, I need to be like them. Not like this, because we are not going to be Tibetans. We're not going to be, kind of like as they were. We need to be ourselves. Westerners, 21st century, and really using that knowledge and that wisdom to really transform our lives. And then from transforming ourselves, Lama Zopa always used to say, we transforming ourselves, then we're going to start transforming those around us, our relationships, our society, and then Dharma will be able to actually flourish in the West. right? So, as I always say, these classes, we're going to have a few things, and one of them is me insulting all of you and being kind of like, putting responsibility, because that's what it is, Buddhism is self-responsibility. It's not about just thinking about, like, okay, I just come here, I sit down, I relax, I listen to blah, blah, blah of Kalden, and that's it. Then it doesn't work, right? So that's why it's so important that we work on ourselves, that we listen, that whatever we are paying attention, whatever that blah 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 that I'm going to say, that it needs to bring to yourself to check if it makes sense, right? And how to apply to your mind. I remember, I'm a very kind of like I have a little bit of scientific background and very investigative like type of mind. And then, I kind of like, for me, when I heard the idea that the Buddha said, don't believe in anything I say, but investigate, analyze it, really try and check, like you're checking gold. If someone gives you a piece of gold, and check the value of it, check if this is really true. By what? Applying to yourself. If it works, use it. If don't, let it go. And that is very empowering if you think about it, right? Not this idea of blind faith, just like, okay, whatever he says, oh yes, oh that makes so much sense. And then we just put it like this, and then we walk around and then that's gone. But if we try to bring it to our own experience, to our own day-to-day life, then things can start to really shift. Because unfortunately, what happens sometimes is that we have so many kind of like dharma nowadays. We are so fortunate. We have like dharma all the time, everywhere. We can just Google and put like Dalai Lama, blah blah blah, and then like a bodhicitta, whatever topic we want to hear, and then we have thousands of things, isn't it? It's just like we are so fortunate in this way. It's so easy to have access to these things nowadays. But then what? Then it just becomes another thing that we consume. Like as we go to the supermarket, or we go to to the restaurant, I'm paying, so you just come and I have an experience, then I go, right? And then doesn't become actually something that can transform ourselves. Then this doesn't become dharma. Dharma becomes something that it's actually giving us the tool to do specifically two things, which is the basis, the baseline that we're gonna actually need to establish in order to talk about any Buddhist teachings, right? Which is the incredible basic need of all sentient beings, which is our wish, our raw wish to be happy and to not suffer. That is absolutely the most important point. If we understand that our wish for living life, for being alive right now, is because we want to be happy and we don't want to suffer, then we are starting to understand what Dharma actually means. Because if we don't understand that, then we cannot understand what Dharma can do for us. Because if we don't understand that we want in every aspect of our lives, everything that we do with our body, speech, and mind right now is motivated by this wish, this basic inner wish of wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer, right? So that is the first thing that we need to really pay attention. But if I'm saying that, and then you can be like, oh yeah, it makes sense, but how it makes sense, right? Give me, like, we need to give examples in our lives. And then it's just easy. Everything that we decided until we were born, until the moment that we are here right now, is because we're chasing that. We were looking for that. We were looking for that wish to accomplish our innermost wish of happiness. Now the question is, okay, Cowden, maybe I can see that, but I am still not happy. Why not? Why I'm not like getting what I want? Because I'm a smart person, I want things, and when I get it, I kind of like I put myself, look at me. I study, I do this, I did that. All of you, look at you. You accomplish so many things. But if you are here, it's because maybe you realize that you're still not 100% happy, right? Because if you were happy, you would not be here looking and listening to this blah 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 of this monk. That's definitely sure. But if you're here, it's because you are starting to touch something in you that says, maybe it's still not there. Maybe there is something that it looks like happiness, but I'm still not getting it. Right? So then the most important aspect for us to start understanding, it's understanding how to achieve happiness and what type of happiness that we are talking about. And also the twofold aspect of our wish is not only looking for happiness and what type of happiness, but is also looking for not to suffer, for not to have dissatisfaction, to not have discomfort. That's what we are also looking for. And therefore, we need to establish what is suffering, what is dissatisfaction, what are the causes of it, and how we can actually let them go, right? Eliminate them. So we don't actually need to continue living again and again and again and again and again and again, chasing these two things. A happiness that never arises and a suffering that always comes back. No, because that is our lives. And especially, have to say, when we start to get a bit older in our lives, we start to see that cycle. Oh no, here I am again. Oh no, this is happening again. The world, the situation completely different. The person is different, this is different, the job is different, the partner is different, but in our mind it feels the same. Do you recognize that? Yes, do you have that feeling sometimes of like, oh, here I am again, how am I ended up here? I thought that I have learned my lesson. But we actually, it's not that we are stupid, it's not that we want to, but it's just because we are confused. That's it. Very important that we don't start, as I like to say, with the whip, and we start to kind of like, boom, oh, I'm stupid, I want to be happy, but I don't know how to make it happy, and all of that. That's what we do normally, no? We start to actually beat ourselves up and say, oh, it's just because I didn't do best, it's just because I didn't do that, oh, I should have done this, I have, I must, all of these very strong aspects in our mind that try to kind of like control ourselves, how to be the right person, the good boy, the good girl, the nice thing, and then pressure. No feeling, no actually experience of enjoyment, of happiness cannot happen because the mind is tight, 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 tight. So then we need to really start to investigate that. And if we're gonna live really look in our lives, and then I say in this talk, in these blah 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 talks, certain things is that one, I'm gonna kind of like be talking, a few things, but especially one of the things that we need to really think about is to bring to our lives, right? And really bring into our lives, we need to give examples. And then if we really try to be honest with ourselves, so honesty is very important, and we look into our lives and we see how we try to achieve happiness, it's easy. Easy to see. We are all the time outside looking for happiness, right? It's everything is outside. I love going to America and going to the supermarket and seeing the 250 different types of yogurt that we can have it in a supermarket, right? It's just something that blows my mind how we can actually be thinking that there is so many different types of yogurt that we can bring ourselves happy. Oh, because this one is a little bit like this and this one's a bit like that. We are always adjusting reality, right? We are trying to adjust the external world to fit into what we think it is happiness, what we think is going to bring us, alleviating our suffering, right? So then we do it with the yogurt, we do it with the pizza, we do it with the chocolate, we do it with the coffee, and then coffee nowadays has become even better. You have the half coffee with soya milk and this and that, and then mix with this and a little like this. We are becoming experts in how to create the perfect kind of like coffee, so we can be happy in the morning because otherwise we cannot live life. So then we really start to check the mind, creating those needs, creating those ideas on how to develop, like happiness outside. And then we go to relationships, always this partner is that person, is this thing. And then, we need to have that person, we need to have that situation, we need to experience that. And then we start to kind of like say, oh no, it is the job, it is the boss, it is that, is, oh no, because I'm too much like this, because I don't have the new iPhone 27 or whatever it is, the new iPhone that we have nowadays. Everything starts to become either a source of happiness, and let's say a very, very, very temporary happiness, okay? Because nowadays, more and more, before when we had less choices, the amount of a satisfaction, as I like to say, from those external things were a little bit higher, a little bit bigger. But now everything became, how can I say, the other things you're gonna learn with me, I invent many words, so we're gonna have a lot of fun here because I invent many words. So it's kind of like, when we are trying to, everything becomes disposable, right? That's a good word. It's like, I don't want, I just throw away and I get a new one. I just get it. So now, like the temporary happiness is even shorter, right? I just have a little bit of excitement for 5 minutes and then it's not good anymore. So those types of mentalities that we are actually looking for and this is what we need to start looking into. And that is why in Buddhism, what is the main goal of Buddhism, the main thing that the tool that we're going to look into is our mind. Because it is the basis of all of our experiences, is the basis of what happens into it between ourselves and the object, between ourselves and the person, between ourselves and the experience. That is the basis of the filter that we have right now to really check how to develop, what we want, and especially just trying to understand what happiness and how to achieve that happiness really means. So this is the point that today we're going to try to cover a little bit, is that understanding that how to achieve that innermost wish of wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. But for me, what is very important is that first we establish that understanding, right? That everything that we do, and that is very important. Most of you are much more advanced in Buddhism. You know much more. You're doing discovered Buddhism with amazing Gus, and Linda knows a lot because being with Venerable Tendron, and Sheila is like, wow, being around all these incredible teachers for years. So you guys know much more than me. But I feel that sometimes we forget this basic understanding that everything that we don't do it because we are stupid, because we are kind of like, not smart enough, because we don't have enough strength or anything like that. It's because we believe, we have this strong belief that whatever we are doing, whatever we are choosing, whatever we are saying no to, whatever we are saying yes to, is based on this understanding of wanting to find happiness and not wanting to suffer. And that, for me, if we really think like that, already would help most of people with depression. Think about it. If I would have depression, if I would think about, because depression, as I like to say, we're going to see, I think, in the fourth or fifth class, or the fourth, I can remember, we're going to talk about anger, right? And anger is that understanding that either is outside, that's the way that I'm gonna see, like, I don't want these for myself, so I want a version I want very far away from me, or, oh, the cause of these suffering is because I am not good enough. I am not this. I am not that. I am like this. And then we start with the whip, pa, 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 and then the mind becomes down, 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 down. And I always say, oh, yes, think about it, your wish to be happy and your wish to not suffer. That is the basic wish. So actually, even if you are thinking in this way or anything like that, you are thinking that this is going to help you to be happy, right? So that gives us a little bit more of an understanding of, oh, I don't need to be so tough on myself. I just need to understand that I have a habit to think that this way is going to bring me happiness. That way that I think is going to bring me away from suffering. It's a habit. And therefore, because it's a habit by its nature, the nature of a habit means it's changeable. That's what a habit means, as we all know, right? So it's just we have a habit to look for fulfilling this innermost wish of finding happiness and not suffering in ways that unfortunately bring us the opposite, bring us away from happiness and more towards suffering. That's all it is. If we establish that understanding of where we are at, then we can start talking about how to actually look for solutions. But that is why it's so important that we really establish that. So it's important that we understand. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Are we communicating? Yes, Cynthia. Please, the first thing that I want to say here is please stop me, save me from my blah blah blah, and ask questions. Okay, I like this. I like a lot of these questions and answer. Okay.
So, are you saying that, because I want to make sure I'm getting it, is that
Yes.
if someone is angry at themselves, like if someone is telling themselves, oh, I need to be better at this, I need to
Mhm.
work harder at this, if they're like beating themselves up,
Yes.
what that comes from is actually wanting to avoid suffering and trying to be like they think that they'll get happy if they beat themselves up about it.
That's it.
Uh,
There is a confusion behind how to achieve that wish, right? I'm not saying it's correct what they are doing. We are not talking, we are still not there. We are not in these because we don't have, we are going to develop that wisdom, right? Throughout these weeks. But we are still just thinking that everything that we do, Cynthia, everything, if I scratch my hair, if I think about something, is because I am habituated in believing that this is the way that I'm going to find happiness and I'm going to get rid of any type of discomfort, dissatisfaction, or suffering, right? So that is very important because then we need to start establishing another aspect is that if I am feeling like this, I am exactly the same with everybody else. It's also doing this, right? So that is something that truly helps us 100% of the time if we actually have that understanding. Right? Why? Because then when someone comes and says something to you, be mean to you or something like this, instead of already immediately reacting, if we come back to this basic understanding, right? We start to see that, oh, this person is actually doing that because they believe that this is going to bring them happiness and not suffering. Nothing to do with me. That is already powerful. Very powerful. To start giving us a little bit of space and understanding, right? His Holiness say that all the time. That what we all want, and even Linda's little cat who is there, what he wants? Happiness and not suffer. That's exactly what he's looking for all the time. Cats, animals, very easy to see. Dogs, if you have a dog, very easy to see how the dog always wants to be happiness and not have suffering, right? If you just say, the dog goes like this. If you say, oh, no, 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 yeah, it goes happy, right? So the dog always is looking for happiness and not suffering. Always, very easy. But we are the same, exactly the same. But we are a little bit more complicated. We are a little bit more kind of like twisted, I would say like that, in the way we are trying to achieve that, right? And even the people, for example, someone says, oh, but someone that is kind of like self-beating, or someone that is like like likes pain, even them, they if they like pain, think about it. If they like pain, I like ice cream. So I have pleasure when I have ice cream. If I like pain, I have pleasure when I have pain. So that means that what I'm looking when I'm like making myself pain actually is happiness. That's what I'm looking for. Pleasure, isn't it? Does it make sense what I'm saying? It's easy to see, to observe in our daily lives that everything we do is based on that. Why we move our bodies when we are like sitting down, because we want to go to a comfortable position. Everything's based on that. Everything, all the decisions that we made in our lives up until now is exactly based on that. Hmm? So that already helps us to not be so tough on ourselves. Because I have to say, we Westerners, wow, we can be very tough. There's a story about one of the first times that the Dalai Lama went to the West, and I have to say, unfortunately, it was in America, and in the 70s, and they were talking about low self esteem, right? That feeling of kind of like, oh, I don't like myself, I kind of like in this. And Thubten Jinpa was the translator, which he was the translator for his own a long time, and he couldn't find a word to translate it because they didn't have that word in Buddhism, in Tibetan, right? So then His Holiness was really trying to understand what the person was trying to ask him, really trying to understand. It's like, what do you need? And then His Holiness asked, but who else feels like this way? And then everybody raised their hands. So then His Holiness really realized that it was like, oh, okay, Westerners, we need to talk about it in a different way. We need to bring the Dharma in a different way so we can actually develop an understanding that first, our main wish, our bare wish, what moves us, right, is that wish for happiness and not to suffer. And that is the basis is also for us to understand how the mind works. Because Lama Yeshe used to say something that I love. I just love. I really try to remember that in my life. He used to say, everything is on the tip of a wish. And that is how it is. Everything that we are, everything that we become, it's based on what we wish. So if we wish for happiness, we will achieve happiness. If we wish to be free from suffering, we will achieve freedom from suffering. What we need to then start developing and discerning is this inner wisdom to really be able to achieve and accomplish what we want. Because when we're going to start slowly talking more and more about is that we don't want just kind of like a temporary sensory satisfaction, right? That we have a lot already, a lot. We eat chocolate, we have these, we smell perfume, and we kind of like sleep, and we do massage, and we kind of like do see many nice things. But that is not the type of happiness we are looking for. That is definitely not. We are wanting a type of happiness that I like to say it's called everlasting, peaceful type of happiness. A happiness that it stays and then there is no need to look anymore for anything. It's there. It's permanently there. It's all the time. It's not changing. It doesn't depend out of external things. It doesn't depend on people. It doesn't depend on anything whatsoever. Right? I'm not saying that we are there yet, so therefore we still depend and are influenced a lot by external things, but I'm saying the potential and the real ish wish of what we are looking for. We are trying to really decipher what happiness means when we say that. Because I remember when I first heard that in one of teachings with His Holiness, actually, and I remember thinking, but what does it mean that we want to be happy and not suffer? It's like, it seems okay, but for me, like, well, eating a pizza makes me happy, but I need to then be eating pizza all the time, so it doesn't make sense. Because then I was really started to really listen and contemplate and study a bit of what His Holiness was saying. And then His Holiness was talking about what really happiness means, right? It's a state of mind. That's what he was talking about. A state of mind that it is, as I like to say, is complete. Nothing is missing. Nothing is there that there is a need for something else. Nothing to change, nothing to improve, nothing to transform, nothing to kind of like, uh, um, um, put it more or take it out. You understand what I'm talking about? Do you recognize? Because we are all the time, if we really observe our minds and our experiences, you know, we see something and then we are like, but. There's always a but, right? There's always a like, Rinpoche. I love this story. Rinpoche used to tell this story that when he was invited once to go to Tahiti, Tahiti, the amazing beach place, like better than Hawaii, this amazing place. And then people ask Rinpoche after the talk and after the trip and say, "Oh, Rinpoche, how was it? Did you enjoy it?" And then Rinpoche had this face like so much suffering. And then everybody was a bit surprised. Like, what do you mean, Rinpoche? It's not like a poor place. It was not. And then he said, people come with so many expectations, coming to this place. And then one thing goes wrong. You know, maybe there's one cloud in the sky. Maybe the hotel room is not like in front of the beach, but maybe sideways to the beach. Maybe the food is a little bit spicy. Maybe there is a little bit this. Everything, so much suffering, right? Because that's how we are. Can be in the most amazing place, Tahiti, with the love of our lives, that we have the potential to find problems, right? To find imperfections, to find a way to make the mind not happy, isn't it? I'm not. I know that I'm like taking or talking about something, but just look in our lives. It's just like that. Ah, but yeah, maybe it's not cold enough. Maybe it's not warm enough. Maybe it's not this. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's just like this. We're always trying to, transform the outside. So that is not the type of happiness that we are looking for. Because the happiness in this way never ever gonna be able to give. Never ever. Forget about it. Forget about it. Never. Right? But actually, the type of happiness that is independent of these things. There is a state of mind where all of these different challenges and things can arise, but we stay still. We keep still. Still doesn't mean physically, doesn't mean mentally, doesn't mean emotionally, doesn't mean like a robot. Many people say to me, "Oh, but like I think that Buddhism becomes like robots. People don't feel anything." And I say, "Well, if people are doing that, then this is not Buddhism. Okay, this is nothing to do with Dharma. Dharma is the opposite, right? Actually, Dharma is about really experiencing in full, but without those wrong ideas, without those nits and bits of like, but if, maybe, when, that kind of like we always create in the mind. So not about that. It's about just being in the presence, right? Because then we really start to understand that that is the potential that we have to live like that. Because we experience some small snapshots. That's a good word. Yes, it's like kind of like like just small little tastes, of these sometimes in our lives. When you have like maybe you have someone that you really enjoy, that you really like, and this person becomes happy, right? And then something in you, without like many thinking, just that feeling of happiness because that person is happy. Have you felt that? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's not something that is intellectual. You didn't do anything. It doesn't need to be something that like, oh, they are happy because I bought that gift and they are happy because I give the gift. No, no, no. Just something random happens to someone that you love, right? And then that person becomes happy and that makes you happy. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Do you see what I'm talking about? That feeling of love, of completely like, wow, right? That is a little bit of the kind of like the small taste that we can develop in order to be in that presence all the time. Or sometimes when the mind, we go to a beautiful place in the woods, or, maybe I don't know if Central Park we can have that, but, but like we go to a beautiful nature place and all of that, and we have that wow experience. And the mind is very gentle, subtle, It's kind of like it's in that feeling of like, of enough. There's nothing like you don't think, you're just immersed in that experience. That is also a little bit of a taste of what it could be. It's not what it is yet, but it is a little bit of what it could be. Until we kind of like start to say, oh yeah, but the trees could be a little bit more in this side, and then the leaves a little bit more like this. They are not yellow enough because I came to see, the then the mind just starts already jumping in and transforming, right? So that is something that is extremely special for us to start recognizing. Hmm? Why is it special? Because if we start to recognize what we can be and the way it can be, we start to actually doubt a little bit, or we start to investigate a little bit more the type of happiness that we talk in our daily lives. Hmm? We start to say, is it really what I can actually achieve? Just these little 5 minutes of a pleasure of eating my ice cream, Oh, another thing, my examples mostly is going to be about food because I'm a foodie. So you guys are going to kind of like learn about that. So, is that just that idea that sometimes we kind of like we think that that's what we can give, that's what we can have. Oh, just that a little bit. But actually, the more we start to understand that this wish for happiness and the type of happiness that we want is that lasting, peaceful, ever present type of happiness. Does it make sense what I'm talking about? Yes? That is important for us to start understanding because this will help us start talking about the difference between this type of happiness, which is our lasting wish, and what we call just temporary pleasures, right? And I like to say more temporary sensory pleasures because it's just the senses becoming happy. That's what it is. Lama Zopa sometimes, and Lama Yeshe as well. There's a very nice saying that Lama Yeshe used to say, sometimes not having what you want, it's very lucky, right? It's a very good thing. Because that's what it is. Because sometimes we think that that's what it is. Nowadays, what we call happiness is just having our sensory our senses being, kind of like stimulated and, like fueled, with something. That's what it is. That's what we think, right? We think that happiness is just scrolling down on the phone or, listening to good music or, watching something or drinking something nice, eating something nice, doing a massage or whatever. That's what we think it is. All sensory temporary pleasures. So I like to call them sensory temporary pleasures so we can start defining what they are and not talking about happiness. So when we're talking about our innermost wish to be happy and not suffer, we are talking about that type of happiness, the lasting peaceful one. Okay? Is that clear? Is that it makes sense as well what I'm talking about? It's important to discern that because otherwise we keep on falling into those traps of thinking that the temporary sensory pleasures is what we want. Hmm? Is I am not saying, so that's good to put here. I'm not saying that they are bad. I'm not saying that we should not have them. I'm not saying any of this. I didn't say. Okay? I'm a lawyer, so I can debate. I didn't say that. What I'm trying to say, they are not the type of happiness that we are looking for to fulfill our thirst for happiness. Okay? I'm just saying that they are temporary sensory pleasures and they are not what we actually can call happiness. Okay? So what does it mean? I'm saying then we should completely forget about this and just focus on the sensor on the ultimate happiness. Yes, that's something that is kind of like in some ways the idea, but I'm saying to you, you cannot do that now. So what you can do is to use those sensory temporary pleasures as a tool for you to look and to go towards the long last happiness. Because otherwise, Lamayesh used to say, if we throw away those sensory temporary pleasures, life becomes very bad, right? Very boring. Hmm? And then we don't want to follow a spiritual path. I don't want to follow Buddhism if Buddhism is telling me to throw everything away. Life is nice. So then I become like, unfulfilled. I go to the opposite. I go to the other extreme. I feel completely empty or not happy or well, not pleasure, not having pleasures, not satisfied. Then the mind doesn't work so well. You know? Then I'm not saying also just go to the other extreme. Enjoy, but enjoy knowing that the chocolate cake only lasts for maybe 3 minutes. Depends. With me, 1 minute, But it's like this is a very short temporary pleasure, and that's it. So if we encounter these experiences for what they are, then life becomes already much better. Just much better. Just by understanding what they are, that they are temporary sensory pleasures. And then I'm going to have a little bit of pleasure in these next 5 minutes, in this next 1 hour when I'm doing a massage, and that's okay. Enjoy, and that's it. But understand that if you don't have them, you will not kind of like be unhappy. Hmm? You will not, because happiness is not there. Do you understand? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yes, are we communicating? Okay. Because that is, yes, Cynthia, yes, thank you.
I have another question. Is that like very developed people, like um very people who have studied a long time, like the Dalai Lama, is are they also uh going towards happiness and not um suffering, but the happiness that they're going towards is the more complete, long lasting happiness?
Yes. Well, it's more like, let's say, the Dalai Lama, in some ways, he already completed, right? If you are in the presence of the Dalai Lama, that I hope one day, all of us can be, and then being the presence of him is almost, there is something that almost emanates, which is that person. For me, the way I'd like to describe is like, is someone that found it. So because he has found it, he has realized it, everything that comes from there, from that inner source, unlimited source of happiness. So if you see the Dalai Lama, he's one of the happiest person in the world. He's always laughing, always relaxed, always chilled, always that, because he doesn't need any of these. I find fine words that I learned, and I don't know if they fit, but I'm gonna use a funny word. They don't they find it funny, and they don't need all the shenanigans that we have in our lives, to kind of like think that we think it helps us to be happy. It's like they don't need. But if they have a pizza, then they eat the pizza and they are happy, and they have pleasures, and then that's it. But their level of happiness doesn't go up and down because of the pizza. Do you understand what it means? What I'm trying to say? It's just that. And that is exactly the experience when you are close to His Holiness. All right? Is that feeling of like, of completely, you can just be with Him, and everything is gonna be fine because there's nothing needed. I used to say that when I used to go to Lama Zopa Rinpoche or to see His Holiness, I always had these like things in my mind. Oh, I need to ask Rinpoche, should I do this? Is this good or that? All these worries, in my mind. And I would go and I would arrive, and my mind would be blank, completely blank, like zero, nothing, because nothing mattered. Like, it's almost like, there is this very strong sun, and then there's some kind of like clouds, and then they really try, and then they just go away like this. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the power of the mind that has realized that lasting peaceful happiness, right? It's just always there present. So whatever it comes, it becomes a way to manifest, you know, either kind of like, like some sort of sensory pleasure for him, but especially with the intention to help others. Because that's what it is. There's a saying in Portuguese that I really like people that are happy don't bother others, right? We say something like this, like happy people don't bother others, something like that in these lines. And I always think about it as like in Buddhism, we would say happy people not only don't bother others, but help others. Because that's what we do, right? When you're actually happy, you have the space of not worrying about how I'm going to fulfill my sensory pleasures, right? Which is the focus of our lives nowadays. So I don't worry about that. And I can start looking and trying to help others be happy, right? So that is why it's so important that we understand that the development of our wish to be happy, it is based on our own path, but it is going towards helping others develop uh, the same fulfillment of their wish for happiness. Does it make sense what I just said? Yes. Does it make sense? Yeah. So that is very important that we start to understand that, and like that we stop with these constant chasing of temporary pleasures as the source of our happiness, right? When I find these, or if I have these, or when I have these, oh yeah, then I'm gonna be at peace, then I'm gonna be happy, then I'm gonna be, fulfilled. We're constantly trying to arrange our external world to make us happy. No, that's what we're doing. That's why we have 250 types of yogurt. You're trying to really kind of like making sure that at some point one of them is going to be the right one that's going to make me happy, right? But we all know from that experience that it doesn't actually work. It just doesn't work because it doesn't bring us. Okay, the new job that we have is like, oh yeah, it's amazing. Oh wow, I'm loving it. And then after a few months, I'm stressed again and something happens. And then, oh, that person, oh, this boss, or this colleague, it's always like this, isn't it? It just comes back. That's why I said that with time we start to see the, the circle, oh, again here, again that, or oh, I'm so happy I'm going to be vacation and all of that. And then, vacation is there and then vacation finished. Boom. Then first email, first day in the office again or working, becomes again, like suffering. So we it just fades away. We understand that, right? So we actually start to realize what is most important for Buddhism is starting to realize where we are at and realizing that we are in this situation, but it starts to understand that it's not the external things, that kind of like will bring what we are looking for. I'm not saying, as I said, that they don't influence us, especially now as we are at, they do. Okay. Like, for example, a good pizza can be, is a condition for our temporary satisfaction. Okay. Okay. That's important. But it's not the cause of it. Right? Because if it was the cause of my happiness, okay, every time that I was going to have pizza, I would have to be happy. And I already have pizza and I was not happy, right? I know, very disturbing, but it happens, Or we have chocolate and I didn't get happy when I was having chocolate. Actually, I didn't like the chocolate and throw it away, right? So that proves that the object in itself can be a condition for that experience of happiness or that experience of satisfaction. But actually, who plays the cause for it is the mind, is the mental state. It's the way how the mind is in the moment when we are doing or experiencing what we are experiencing. Does it make sense? Yes, what I'm saying? It is that kind of like trying to understand it, that the real source of our happiness, the real source of our misery, the real source of our dissatisfaction, it's in our own minds. And that is quite difficult already to accept. Because it's almost saying that we're gonna have to stop blaming and putting the responsibility outside, which is our status quo. It's our normal day life, right? If we are in a bad mood, it's because someone did that to us, because the boss, because the partner, because that and that happened, right? If we are happy, it's because we received a compliment, is because, someone did something nice to us, because we got money, because we got this and that, isn't it? It's always like this. So actually understanding, making this shift, which is the basis of Dharma and studying the Dharma, is that actually, the happiness, the real kind of like source of it is in our own minds. Understanding that the mind is like a filter. No? An event happens. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you are over there in New York and you get stuck in traffic. The event of getting stuck in traffic is a neutral event. It's not good, bad. It's just cars on the road. That's what it is. Yeah? But it passes through this filter, what we call our minds. No? So if the mind is in a filter or in the lenses, as I like sometimes to say, depending on the lenses of what we are looking, how we are looking at things, then it can be a misery, a discomfort, a negative experience, because there is anger or stress, and then, oh no, I can't believe this. I know I'm stuck and I need to do this and blah blah blah. And the mind becomes and the experience becomes that. Or it can be if the mind is relaxed with, patience or something like this, maybe you listen to a nice song or whatever, then the experience is completely different. Yeah? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Yes? So the external experience in and by itself, it's completely neutral. It's completely empty. I'm going to say already this big word, empty of good or bad, right? It's not good, it's not bad. What filters it, it's our own experience through our own mind. Does it make sense? Are you agree with that? Does it, yes? Or do you have a question? Yes, Cynthia, thank you.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, that like the chocolate has like characteristics, and
Yes,
my mind interacts with it in a way that like gives it this good quality.
yes.
In and of itself, the chocolate is not good or bad. It's
Delicious or not,
okay.
right? Because if it was, Cynthia, if the deliciousness was in the chocolate, then every single person in the universe, including Linda's cat, would have to have the experience of deliciousness. And guess what? There are some crazy people in this world that don't like chocolate. Do you understand that? They have this, it's true. But I know, mind blowing, but it's there. They are there.
Okay.
So that proves, right? That the chocolate doesn't have the deliciousness, the goodness in it. So
Mm-hmm.
who is imputing that? Your mind. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And guess what, Cynthia? We do that with everything in our lives, especially with ourselves.
Okay.
Does it make sense what I just said?
No. I'm thinking.
We impute qualities and things in ourselves as well.
Yeah.
Cynthia is like this, Cynthia should be like this, Cynthia has this quality, Cynthia has this flaw, Cynthia has like this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're gonna ask every single person that knows you, they will come in with different opinions.
Mm.
Yeah? Your friends are gonna say good things about you. Your enemies or people that don't like you so much are gonna say different things about you. People that don't know you having completely different opinions, right?
Yeah.
So which of them are right? None. It's all subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right or wrong in this case is subjective. In this analysis, we are not saying that everything is subjective, right or wrong, right? For example, if we have the law, according to the law, something is right or wrong, and that's conventional, right? But in this analysis that we are making, that's what it is. Does it make sense what I just said? Yes?
I got like 90% of that.
That's okay. Yeah, 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 yes. That's the idea, And then you're gonna go home because we're gonna have homework. Every time here we're gonna have a little homework, okay? Is the homework is to think about things. So you bring to your life. So then the next week, so is you stay with that understanding in your life. So during your week, coming back to that point. That's what I call meditation. Meditation is called familiarization. That's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're gonna familiarize ourselves, we need to bring something with ourselves. And every time we come back to that familiarization, that is meditation. So that's why I like to give these ideas that we can meditate throughout our days, our life, our week, and think about it. It's like, wow, does it make sense what Kalden was talking about? How does it these work? And then you think about contemplate. Very good. This is best. If you do this is the best way to kind of like practice Dharma, right? So in this way, we really start to understand that, oh, wait a minute. The filter of my mind is extremely important, isn't it? Right? The lenses, what type of like glasses I'm looking into something is extremely important, right? Because these will depending on whatever type of lenses or filter I'm having, the experience will be different. Hmm? So instead of trying to control the entire world, instead of trying to, make the world fit with our ideas and desires and understandings of what happiness and what satisfaction is, we just need, it's just very much more simple. We just need to understand and work with our own mind, with our own filter, right? There was a story about a teacher, Shantideva, actually, I think was the one that said that, about, and he used to say, instead of kind of like putting leather on the entire world, it's actually easier to just put a leather on under my own soles, on my own feet, right? That is the idea, if we think about it. Stop trying to control, because I don't know you guys, but I'm a control freak, trying to fit everything to my needs, to my wish, to my wants. And it's not possible, you know? Absolutely impossible. But instead of that, if I can try to control and understand a little bit more how my mind works, how the filters I'm using, how I'm perceiving things, then my life's much easier. Right? Because as the one I like to say, I did therapy, when I was young. My mom's a psychiatrist, so I did therapy as well. That's why I'm like this. So, it explains a lot. So, like I become a monk, that but I remember in therapy really helped me to understand some aspects of my mind, that for this life and things, like some patterns and habits that I had. But when I started to listen about Buddhism really brought that truly understanding of the science and the mechanics of the mind, as I like to say. And that actually eliminated all of the problems in the essence, or has the potential to eliminate the essence, so no more problems come out. Right? So let's say I have a situation with like an attachment or a kind of like anger towards something or someone. Instead of just dealing with that relationship and that circumstances and situation, Buddhism, it wants to eliminate the entire emotion to arise in your mind, the entire filter to get eliminated. Does it make sense? What I'm trying to say is, like, let's say that with a certain situation, we use it as filter. Yes? Like a filter of anger because that person did that to me. What therapy is going to help is just to say, oh, try to change that filter, But then we take it out and then we put it in the pocket. And then another situation comes, but then we feel that that situation, we need to put that filter and then we use it. Buddhism is saying, take out that filter and completely throw away so it never comes back again. Does it make sense? Yes, what I just said? That is the power of Dharma. That is the power of Buddhism, is to completely eliminate the negative filters that we are using in our minds, okay? And that we can actually realize that we don't need the good filters, kind of like that are limited. We actually, if we take out the glass, we realize that the essence of our own minds and the essence of our own beings is unlimited positive filters, unlimited qualities. Does it make sense what I said? Yes? That is very special. Very special that we understand, because normally we have an idea that first we are not good enough, or we are sinners, or we don't have that. But actually, our own mind, the nature of our own mind, as we say in Buddhism, is completely pure and completely full of good qualities. We just need to now develop ways to let it go of what is limiting it and what is conditioning it. Right? That's what the problem is, because the filters that we have right now, they are like the good filters is that, okay, yes, 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 okay, this person is nice, so I'm compassionate and kind because this person is nice. So I'm using the kind, compassionate filter because this person is nice to me. But if that person is not nice to me, then I take it out and I put another one. So how about we always have the compassionate, loving, kind, patient, wise filter with everybody? Right? Because guess what? They just want to be happy and not suffer, just like us. Hmm? And if we can do that with ourselves, then we can help others to do the same. Does it make sense? Yes. Does it help? Because I feel that it's very important that we start to understand, that actually the nature of our own mind is completely beyond, these filters, is beyond these, like, as we say in the text, the nature of our mind is like, the sun always shining. That's what is always there, right? It's not like these kind of like clouds that we get stuck into. Hmm? The stuck of like the cloud of anger, the cloud of attachment, the cloud of pride, the cloud of jealousy, the cloud of depression, the cloud of anxiety. That's what we think it is, our mind. Hmm? That we think that this is what we experience, that we think that is who we are, that these filters it's who we are and who we should be. But the mind has this experience much bigger. It can be complete. It's always there, that kind of like quality that we call being clear, you know? That's what we say, that the qualities of the mind has mainly two qualities. There's this clarity, this openness, like the nature of being open, like the sky. Just like that, vast, fundamentally undisturbed, we say, right? That's the nature of the mind that we say is clear. One of the qualities is always like that. So thoughts, emotions, sensations are just clouds passing through. Or it's just like, we putting these kind of like frames and like, and there's kind of like lenses, that are kind of like limiting our experience. We get stuck here. We get stuck in thinking that this is the reality, this is life, right? As Cynthia was asking, it's like kind of like, oh, we are kind of like, the way we believe that the chocolate is having that quality, and therefore, this is what is life and what it deserves. But it's not like that, right? This is a limiting experience that we are creating, right? With attachment, or with anger, or with this, or with that. It's just coming from those clouds and not from the nature, pure nature of our own clarity of our own mind. Yeah? So it's very important that we understand that, like, sometimes even that the sky is very full, dark, stormy clouds, anger, fear, anxiety, whatever it is, depression, it's just a storm. So behind those clouds, always, 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 the pure clarity nature of our own mind is there, not damaged, not stained, not changed. It's clear, spacious, vast, calm, peaceful, always there. Hmm? That idea that we are not those experiences, right? We are not the thoughts, we are not the anger, we are not that. That is very important, that we start to understand, that we start to communicate, and we start to interact, and we start to familiarize ourselves, as I like to say. Mm. That we familiarize ourselves with these qualities of clarity. But more than that, not only the clarity, but also we have another quality that we call is what we call knowing, or of awareness. Is clear and knowing, we say, the mind. And when we say that the mind is knowing, means that whatever can arises, in this clarity, whatever can come, we have the option, we have the opportunity to actually to know, to interact, to kind of like experience that thought. Hmm? That's what happens. We have the experience of the thought. So that means that we need to be very clear, very, very careful with the thought that is coming and what we are actually trying to experience. Because otherwise, what happens is exactly what is happening now in our lives. I can't remember the number of thoughts that we have a day. It's like something that is like, I don't know, 7, 8, 10,000 thoughts a day. But then some thoughts come up, and that normal aspect, the quality of our life, of our minds, of knowing it knows, but then not only knows, grasps to it and it stays with that thought. And we go, and then out of this thought, what happens? All of the path of our experience comes from that. What does it mean? From that thought, emotions, feelings, and especially speech and action comes out of that. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Is that first kind of like mental activity of a thought, and then especially an interaction and knowing of this thought, that is the starting point of our actions of body and speech. Hmm? Even though we might say many times, but I wasn't thinking when I said that. This is an excuse we use. In Buddhism, especially when we start to understand the science of the mind, it doesn't work, this experience, because we can prove that everything first comes from a mental aspect. Right? There's nothing that we have done that it hasn't been really, we might not be aware of our intention, aware of the pattern, aware of the mental kind of like habit, but is there. you know it doesn't mean that because I'm not aware, because I'm not into like seeing it, or that I know it, that it is not there, right? Like I don't know, I don't understand how gravity works. It doesn't mean that gravity is not there. You understand? It's not that way. It's just that it's there, but we are maybe not be aware of it. So when we start to understand that actually the mind is the creator of also our actions of body and speech, then the mind becomes even more the center of our focus, right? Because so many times, and especially nowadays, I see that, yes, we still have a lot of violence with physical violence, horrible, horrible physical violence. The body can become really a weapon, and of course the body can have weapons to make even more suffering towards ourselves and others, but the speech as well, right? The speech can be very cutting, very, like a sword, really putting deep into ourselves and others, isn't it? Do you understand? Yes. So the speech is something that we use, and I speech, I mean, maybe nowadays texting, as well. Texting or speech in that case, the communication can be also very painful. It can be a tool to cause pain, but also can be a tool to cause, kind of like um, uh, happiness for others, right? It can definitely cause. So that means more and more we need to work and understand the mind. That's why I say, for me, when I started to understand Buddhism, I started to understand that is the mechanics and starting to understand the science of the mind. That's what Buddhism mainly talks about, right? His Holiness always keeps on talking about that. Always, 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 always. There's the book that I highly recommend, especially for these teachings in this blah 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 that I'm doing, is a book from His Holiness and Thubten children called Approaching the Buddhist Path. Very good. It's like a 10, they have a 10 series. But this one is very special because it's a very kind of like an interaction of what, like, especially for us Westerners, 21st century, what it talks about, and His Holiness is always talking about that, right? Understanding it, understanding really that. So, with that idea, we need to understand that the nature of our own minds is clear, is knowing, but because of our habits and because of our confused mind, yes, and because of the filters that we are actually experiencing things, we actually are being confused on how to achieve our happiness and how to be free from suffering. So that is what we really need to establish. And from there, if we really start to establish that, then we can start to understand, understanding to identify the common patterns, really, that, that kind of like blurry or kind of like interact of the filters that are negative to our minds. And at the same time, we can start understanding then what we call the kind of like the filters that can help us really achieve a more happy and fulfilling life. So that's what we can do by understanding the mind, right? Cultivating the positive ones and eliminating the negative ones. That is mainly what the Buddhist path is about. When we talk about enlightenment, it's actually, or Buddhahood, it's always about that. It's about this twofold aspect of realizing our own wish of happiness and not suffer. Means developing our own good qualities and eliminating or developing our good filters and eliminating the negative ones. That's what it is, right? That is the main aspect of our lives. Nothing else, nothing more complex. Let's not make it also Buddhist so complex that we lose its sight or touch with the essence in the day-to-day lives. But that is the essence of the Buddhist path. Enlightenment is nothing different than actually just removing the negative and eliminating the negative filters and expanding in an unlimited and unconditional way the good filters. That's it. Does it make sense? Does it yes? It makes brings a bell of what I'm talking about. Enlightenment is not something out there. It's not something that is dependent on external things. Enlightenment is inside, it's a mental state. Yeah? But as I said, we need now to create the causes to develop those mental states through the external conditions to help us. Yeah, we still need the external conditions. Yeah. So don't think, okay, if Kalden is saying that, then I can just throw away and go and live on the mountains and things like that. Okay, you go over there in the mountain, then you let me know how happy you are. How you are. So then you can tell me how it goes. I think that was the main things I want to do it. You're gonna see that I don't like to also do, like today we're gonna just, but I also like the if we can do sometimes, some questions and answers if you have more questions so you can answer. But I also like to do some small discussion groups, that we can discuss sometimes a few things, because then I feel that when we talk about it, we can also think about these things. Okay? Okay, so homework for this week, so you guys can write it down, is trying to just slowly kind of like starting to pay attention, let's say like that, into the filters of your own mind, right? You're not to modify it, you're not to do anything, but just to see the filters, how if you can recognize in the experiences you're having the filters of your own mind. Does it make sense? Just recognize. Don't do anything. Don't try to change. Don't try to like scold yourself to say, oh, I can see that I'm using a negative filter here because don't do any of this. Don't go there. Just observe. It's like, oh, recognize. Oh, look at me here. I can see that I'm wearing a filter here, that I'm judging these with a certain filter. Just recognize that. That is amazing, right? That by itself. So just start to familiarize yourself with this. Okay? Does it make sense? Does it is clear? Because I'm very confused sometimes, but I hope that it is clear. Yes? Just recognizing the filters. That already helps quite a lot. Okay? Okay. Any other questions or any other doubts or any other things? Because I also feel that you've been here in the online for 2.5. You're already coming from home, so you don't need to be here 1.5 hours. We can be 1 hour and 25 minutes, and that's okay. Sheila's gonna go back to Patty and the others and say, that lazy monk, he's finishing teachings late earlier, and I'm gonna say, yes, yes, no problem at all. I'm lazy monk. But I feel that one of the things that I did with the center in in Florida was that, we tried to actually make it a little bit shorter than 1.5 hours, because it can be tiring. It can be tiring for people. Yes. But if you have questions, and sometimes we will go a little bit over because we were engaged in the discussion. So we go like this, everything is flexible. So if you don't have any questions, then I just wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being so kind, for being coming and listening to this blah blah blah. And especially if there is anything that maybe was in any way beneficial, that then use that. Use that, not to just kind of like, like say, oh, I learned something or something like this, but you really transform your mind so you can realize, what you can, the potential you have to develop your own mind, and then be able to help others. That is the most best thing we can do, right? That's the best dedication. I always say, best how we dedicate whatever we do is in this way. We dedicate that we can use whatever beneficial we have to benefit others, continue benefiting others. Okay, we are nourishing these seeds. That's what we are doing. Yeah, because we're gonna plant some seeds, and then we nourish these seeds and whatever, and try to do the homework. Okay, no pressure. If not, it's okay. If it's okay. Everything is okay. Okay. So I see you next week. Okay. I hope it was in any way in beneficial. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Jennifer. Yes, it was very
Okay.
helpful. Lots to
Thank you
think about.
so much. Thank you so so much. And I see you next week then. Have a
Okay, next.
wonderful evening. Bye. Bye bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.